My name is Peter McKee. I'm on the developer relations team at Docker. And today I'm going to be talking about how to supercharge your development using VS Code and, pardon me, VS Code and the Docker extension. So one of the first things you need to do to get started is head over to our hub.docker.com, and create a free Docker ID. I'm going to talk a little bit about that, why you should do that. Next thing you should do is then head over to products, Docker-desktop, and download the desktop. Come in here, you can choose whether for Mac or Windows. That will install Docker locally on your machine, and you can interact with VS Code. Okay, so let's jump right into it. I don't have any slides today. We're going to spend all of our time inside of code here. So the first thing you want to do is you're going to come over here to the extensions. You can also use a shortcut key, or you can click on the little icon over here and just search for Docker. And you should have the first result should come up and should be the extension that we want. So I already have it installed, was worried about internet connections and those type of things, but you'll have a little install button over here. Just click on that. That'll install the extension. Once it's installed, you'll have this little whale icon or little Moby icon. So if you click on that, we have a bunch of little panels to your left. And your panels might not be in the same order that mine are, but I like to organize mine this way because I usually build images first, and then I run those images in containers, and then they use volumes and networks. So right now you can see I have a couple of images. I have a Mongo image and an Nginx. I don't have any containers running, no volumes right now. I do have bridge network. I do have networks, and these are the networks that Docker sets up for you. Again, I'm not going to dive too deep into those, but you can check out our docs if you want to learn a little more about networking. And then you have context. I won't dive too deep into this, but a context is basically allows you to set up a context for a cloud, a public cloud. So either AWS or Azure, you can set up a context that points there, and then you can run your same Docker CLI commands that you know and love, and they'll be run up in the cloud for you. If you want to learn more about that, check out our YouTube channel. Got a bunch of stuff out on there. Really cool stuff. Next one is the registry. So I'm going to connect to a registry, and I'm going to connect in the hub. So I clicked on connect registry, and this opens up the drop down here. I'm going to choose hub. I'm going to put in my Docker ID. Whoa. Got to hit the right keys here. Hardest part about doing demos is typing in front of people. And then put in your password. Okay, now we're connected in the hub. So you can see Docker Hub here. You can expand hub. You can see our repositories that you're a member of. You can expand the repositories, see the images that you have. And then if you expand your images, you can see all the tags. So I'm going to grab the latest here. And if you right click, easy way to pull that image, just right click, choose pull. That'll pull down your image from hub. You can see right here what command is being run by the extension, a Docker pull. So that'll pull down images from hub. Once it's done, it'll show up here at the top. Okay, so that's a whirlwind tour of the plugin right now. So let's take a look at a sample application. So I have a really simple Node.js application. I'm using a little framework that I wrote that's I just use for demos. It simplifies the code a little bit. But we basically have two REST endpoints here. And we're going to be using this one mostly. Don't worry too much about the code. It's just sample code. All right. So we have an application. We have our code. We have our extension installed. So it could be great. I could just run the application right now and start debugging, but I want to run everything in containers, right? I want to use my containers to debug and develop in, and then share those out to the world. So I need a Docker file. To build an image, we need a Docker file. A couple ways you can do that. But with the extension, if I open up the command palette and I type in Docker file, add Docker file to your workspace, we're going to click on that. Now it's asking me, what's my application platform? So I'm running Node.js, so I'll click on that. Now it's looking for the package.json. And the extension uses the package.json to fill out different parameters and to infer how to run different commands. And I'm going to show a little bit of that in a second. So let me choose the package.json. It's not underneath my Node modules. And then our application actually runs on 8080. So let me add that in there. We're not going to add a compose file at this time. So go ahead and do that. And voila, I got a fantastic Docker file here. Let me add a little bit of white space. And Okay, there we go. So now we got our Docker file. Let me save that. I'm not going to run through the Docker file for the sake of time, but a key things I want to show is it sets up your node environment variables, includes and installs your packages. And then right here on line 10, I want to point this out. So we're copying, what the dots mean is I'm going to copy everything in the context, my Docker context that I've sent to the build command. I'm going to copy everything there and I'm going to put it inside the image, and it's going to put it inside the working directory because I set a working directory. So what if we have files that are in our in our context, in our project, that we don't want included in our file, in our image? So usually what we do is we create a Docker ignore, a .docker ignore. And of course, the extension is set this up for me, put this into my project, has some awesome defaults. You'll see here, we're not including node modules, those type of things. Little quick tip, if your images that you're producing when you're building are large, make sure you have a Docker ignore file. I see that a lot. Sometimes it's new projects and those type of things. You forget to create the Docker ignore file. You're putting your whole documentation project folder into your image, and it just expands your image. So check that first. So the extension sets that up. Awesome. Okay, so we installed the extension, and now we have a Docker file produced for us. Let's go ahead and build an image. So a couple ways you can do that. I like to just right click right on my Docker file, choose build image. So that's going to run a build. Sometimes it doesn't like to run when I do it demoing. There we go. Okay, so it's built my image. I'm going to scroll up here. Sorry for the fast scrolling. But you can see the extension runs the exact same commands that you would be running in the terminal. And others have made the point that context switching really kills your productivity, right? So normally I would be alt-tabbing, or I'd be coming down here somewhere. I'd be clicking on the terminal. I'd be running a Docker command there, then coming back into VS Code, coding a little bit, going back to my terminal, those type of things, right? But if you're staying in VS Code and using the extension, it reduces the amount of context switching you need to do. So also here to note is we have some of the, all these flags are getting passed into the build, right? So where do all those come from? So another really cool thing that the extension does for us is it includes this, this task.json file. And so what it did is it created 3 tasks, 1 for a build, and then 2 for running our images, 1 for release, and 1 for debug. And right here, you can see you can configure the way things are built and the way things are run. So let's take a look at our images real quick. So let me make this, see if I can get some more room here. Oh, well, okay. There we go. There's our Zap name, the image that was just built. And we have the latest, right? So where did this Zap P name come from? Well, Docker knows that you have a node application because we set that up when we were created our Docker file. So what that does is looks in the package.json, looks for your name in there. If you don't have a name in your package.json, it'll bump up into the directory and use the directory name. But I don't like that. This is some name that I just have from a previous demo. So what I want to do is change that. So I'm going to come into my tasks, and I'm going to add another configuration in here. I'm going to call it tag and give a colon. And I'm going to call it VS Code Docker. Okay, I'm going to save that. I'm going to come back. I'm going to build my image from now over on the Explorer side. And again, just right click, choose build image. And that builds my image. So let's go ahead and take a look now at our images. Let's close some of these down so we can have a better look. Okay, cool. So now I have VS Code Docker, that image, and I have my Zap name. We don't need this one anymore. So a lot of things, again, I don't have to switch it over to my terminal. I can stay right here, just right click and say remove. Yep, remove that image. Okay, and now it's gone. So we've built our image. We changed what tag we want. Now let's go ahead and run our project inside of a container, right? And so now all we have to do is let's come over to the debug. Oh, real quick, let me show you. So we have this launch.json. The extension also set this up for us. And you can see right here, this pre-launch task is going to run this docker-run :debug task. And that is going to look right here in the debug. And what's pretty cool, it has this depends on. So it's going to depend on this Docker build, which is our build at the beginning, and then it's going to run our project. So let's go ahead and do that now. So I'm going to click on the run. It started up. And I know that scrolled by really fast there. So We'll come up to the top and we can see that we built. And then if I scroll to the bottom, again, sorry for the fast scrolling, you can see that I've ran my image. And now we're up and running. We have our image running. We're good to go. You can see that that the extension has pulled in these environment variables out of our task down here. You can see we set environment variables. Those were pulled in. And also a really cool thing is we're exposing port 9229, which is the default debug port. And then it runs node using the -- inspect. That's setting up our debugger. Okay, so now let's come over to the extension, expand my containers, give it a refresh. And now we can see that our container is running. Pretty simple. We can right click on that. We can view logs. Make this bigger for folks. So you can see all the logs that are running out of your container that are being produced from your container. You can even attach into a shell inside of your container, excuse me. And we could do run regular commands. We can cat out files. We can take a look at what's going on, right? So let's go ahead and stop that. I think one last thing I want to do. So let me go ahead and stop that. Move this down here. So this is all great, running awesome. Let's open up our source file. And let's see if we got a debug point set. Let's see if we can run our image inside of our container, connect with Visual Studio Code into the container and see our breakpoint break. Okay, awesome. Let's go up here. I'm gonna start with debugging. You can also push your F5. You could come over into the debug tab, and you can start it from here. Okay, so we're up and running. The debugger's attached. I have my breakpoint set. So come back over to my browser, and let's hit that code endpoint. And there we go. It hit our breakpoint. Now we're from the container. We're debugging into the container, back in the Visual Studio Code. We have our breakpoint, and we're able to inspect just like you normally would. You can see all kinds of interesting things running. You can debug your code. Yep. So nice, seamlessly connect right into your container. Let's make sure, and now you can see it running. You can also expand your file systems. A lot of times when you're building your images and your containers are running, you'll get file not found, those type of things. Easy way to see what's been added into your container is by looking right here in the containers panel. Okay, awesome. So let's go ahead and stop this. Give that a second to stop. One last thing I want to show is another, and I could probably do it while it's stopping, is typing all those commands out and getting things on the command line is time consuming. You can't remember all those things, right? So compose files are really awesome to configure your containers and run them locally and orchestrate them locally. So you can have your, like we have right here, our REST API. And let's say we wanted to connect that into the database, we can add that in a compose file. So let's build a compose real quick. So just do Docker compose and add a compose file to your workspace. Yes. And Node.js, some of the same questions, package JSON. We're running on port 8080. And it's going to run a bit. Let's come over here. Now we can see it's created 2 files for us. We have a Docker compose. This is everything that we'd be typing out on the command line. Same thing, the extension is running, is all nicely packaged up in your compose file. You can add in any services you need, networks, volumes, those type of things. And then also we have one for debugging, right? And we can see here that it's going to run the command. It's going to overwrite the command that I have in my Docker file, and it's going to run this -- inspect. So we can put it into debug mode and we can debug. Awesome. Thank you so much. There's a ton more you can do with the extension. I wish I have more time. Maybe I'll do a video on all the other features, but yeah, thanks for joining me and listening to me talk.
Awesome. Thank you, Peter. So some questions for you. We got a few minutes to do some Q&A.
All right.
For folks that are new to Docker and containers and images, some of these terms might not be familiar. So if you could describe what's the difference between an image and a container?
Yeah, I know. This is a question I get asked a lot, right? It can be confusing. There's some confusion out there around VMs and containers. So the way I like to explain it is a virtual machine virtualizes your hardware, right? So you have the hardware, you have a bunch of CPUs and a bunch of memory. you put in a VM layer, and that allows operating systems to be installed, multiple different operating systems be installed, and it virtualizes the hardware. Containers virtualize the OS.
Hmm.
So you have one OS installed and you have multiple containers running. It's just a simple, normal operating system process that's been wrapped and isolated from the rest of the processes. So that process runs and thinks it has access to everything it can see. So that's the main differences between the two. And that's why you can't run a Windows exe on a Linux operating system, right? On as a container, and vice versa. It shares the underlying operating system. And then real quick, the difference between an image and a container is I like to put it into object-oriented terms. So in object-oriented, we have classes and objects. So class is kind of the template that produce multiple objects. Same thing with an image in a container. Your image is your template, kind of the cookie cutter that stamps out containers. So an image is run inside of a container, and you can run that image in multiple containers. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I like the way you put that with the classes and all that.
And cookies. You gotta talk about cookies.
Yes, of course. I mean, you had me at cookies. Well, thank you so much, Peter. That was super helpful and insightful. And thanks again.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.